simplest way I'd like to put it, and this is not hypothetical, it's very, very real, is a realization came from some of our business executives is people in their real life are really very smart. When it comes to their personal adoption of technology, they make the right choices, what they want to use Facebook for or WhatsApp for. But the moment they step into an enterprise environment, they are not that smart. The enterprise-grade solutions actually do not give them the similar sort of leverage which the tools that they use in their personal life give. And I think that's probably the biggest segue as technology leaders that we need to look at in our environment inside the office. It has to be as seamless as the communication that people do personally. They adopt these technologies without any training, and we spend multiple hours in training users on a new technology we are trying to build. So there's definitely some learnings that we can pick what those products are doing better. So to answer your question, in my approach, we have to actually get things as simpler and in some cases adopt the same products. A good example at Coke was we took on Workplace from Facebook as our enterprise social media. And I mean, it was the simplest solution because people were using Facebook in some capacity or the other and required absolutely no training. So yeah, that's one way to approach it.
Based on my experience, one of the challenges is to identifying what's the real customer inputs. You can interview, what kind of user experience you are missing, but sometimes the user has no idea about their talking. For example, conference. I cannot hear audio from the other side. Okay, that could mean microphone the other side is bad. The network line is poor. The pipe is too thin. Could be a DSP echo cancellation is bad in your room, or simply bad placement of speakers, right? So sometimes we tend to make a jump on the decision. Oh, here is a problem. But that if you make a bad assumption, you are listening to a customer user experience, but it's not really approaching what they're really talking about. So data-driven decision is very important, but it has to have the context on it. So that's the most difficult part of the user experience driven. It's not the engineer think this is the right thing, right? Understanding real user experience challenge come to the very difficult part of the future-oriented complex system. Because you said, in the 20 years ago, bad speaker is bad speaker. It's really simple to fix it. But today, it's so many value chains, not easy to identify what the real pain point is. So.
I might just build on that slightly and absolutely agree and concur. There's no one right path to this. Partly it's around listening and asking questions just as much as it is about proposing potential ideas and solutions at the same time. So when dealing with end users or customers or audiences, if we're not going into it with a product or a solution in mind, we're purely listening and we're understanding what's going on in their lives, and we understand what opportunities exist to enhance their experiences even more through different products or different services. That actually creates a foundation with which to build something new, which is quite different to perhaps going in with a predefined idea as to what the solution might be, because it all of a sudden limits the questions that you're asking and the data and the research and the insights that you're gathering to a foundation which may or may not be correct. And neither's right or wrong. It's about what's optimal. It's about what's effective. And I guess the other part to this is it's what's effective at that point in time. There is a temporal scale to this for all of us in terms of the pace and rate of innovation that we're seeing that we also need to take into account. Sometimes for end users and customers, it's very difficult for them to provide feedback about experiences that they've never had before, that they can't necessarily imagine or see or touch because it hasn't been built yet. So we find that often prototyping or developing potential ideas or solutions to gather a range of feedback can sometimes be an insightful way to not start with a completely blank page, as you say, but to start to provide some context.
I completely agree. I mean, data is so important when you're looking at products or solutions, but we also look at more of a holistic. So we know experience, shape behaviour, which determines culture. So when we're speaking to clients or looking at space, normally we'll start at the culture element. We can understand the culture, then it goes backwards. We can get an idea of the behaviours that they're trying to establish in the workplace or in their space, which obviously influences the experiences of the employees. So we take a two-pronged kind of, data is very important, but culture is just as important.
I think that most of the times with AV integrators, we are at the end of the process. And our data that we get is most of the time specifications. We need a 55-inch screen and, well, things like that. But what we want is functional descriptions. And I think that's something that the market is not used to, and we want to get used to get better solutions that fit the needs of the customer.
Buying is emotional. People buy for their reasons, not yours. And I think that's what you need to think about when you are meeting with clients or end users and discussing products as such. Again, it's back to the experience and the behaviours, getting to, I guess, the core of the solution and what they're actually trying to provide for their users, allows a lot deeper understanding than just, here's a product.
I'll build on that briefly as well. I mean, I think for most brands, even those that have pure products, it is still a service experience. It is the service of finding out about that brand, finding out about that product, the path to being able to purchase it, the experience or the conversation or the dialogue that happens. The challenge for many product-led organisations is often that service experience, you're actually giving it to other people. And the question is, are they doing the right thing by your brand? Because they're still experiencing a service that goes along with the transaction of that product. And I think some of the learnings that have been had by some of the FMCG brands globally, where they might have a highly commoditised product that sits on a shelf, and they've essentially outsourced the entire service experience to someone else, but there's still a connection there. I think there's often learnings that can be had from some of those other industries and sectors to what is called pure service design. And I think the contrast to that is to see the way that purely service-based organisations have really tried to value that, and also see how they can differentiate in that space.
Well, it's come to a conference. I think all of us, including end users, manufacturer, system integrators, we are kind of a transition. I'll give you an example. The meeting room having 6 to 8 people capacity. I prefer bringing my laptop computer, connecting to, well, hopefully wirelessly, right? And connecting a 60-inch monitor and do everything, including audio. Some people are not comfortable, don't want to bring anything, expecting still the, how do you call it, the tabletop speakerphone. That's the conferencing solution. So auditorium, other venues, people have a certain expectation on and are looking for similar experience. But it's come to conference room, the standard of the end users varies a lot. So once again, back to my initial comment, interviewing a few people, getting information driven by that is kind of dangerous. So I gave you 2 extreme examples. I prefer laptop, nothing, wireless. Some people want a speakerphone. So who's gonna decide what the best user experience is? That's kind of the challenge we are facing today. It's come to the conference room. But that's kind of unique. As I said, like auditorium, gymnasium, all others, ballrooms, pretty standard. So I think that's kind of the challenge we all are facing in the next 5 years until we are converging into the future conference room standard.
I mean, when we're undertaking a project, we start off normally before the client's even chosen the space, and we do things like workshops with executives, we do surveys with all the different user groups, we speak to all the department heads to try and get a really good overview of the spectrum. And majority of the time, they're so far apart on what they think they need or what they actually need or what's actually going in the workplace. So a lot of the time, it's up to us to, I guess, to summarise it and to put it into their own language about suggestions about what they need. But at the end of the day, it's a top-down approach. They need to change their culture. They need to educate their workforce on how they're working or how the culture changes they are working, because you can't accommodate everyone. And technology is changing so fast that people need to continue educating on the changes and what's happening in the workplace.
I spoke a little bit earlier today about our process of at least trying to make some sense of those challenges, and that's through using personas, which is grouping people based on those sorts of similar needs, which has positive elements, but it also can be dangerous from time to time when you start to aggregate too much. And then archetypes, which is just that little bit more contextual about phases and timing and intersection points. But very much to build on this idea of it's a rapidly changing place, I think no more do we see that right now in the emergence of workshare buildings, where in this very same building you've got that spectrum of level of advanced usage from organisations which might be a startup in nature through to highly sophisticated, highly established organisations, and they're using the same room, just one after the other. And so that idea of what a baseline is a real challenge that we need to face into. But at the same time, it's back to, well, what do we have in common? Personalisation is necessary. Seamless connectivity is necessary. This idea of it just being intuitive in nature, not needing to follow a long set of instructions or steps or manuals. So again, it's back to that, if we're going to face into this challenge and develop new things, new experiences, new solutions that have never been seen before, we have to just accept those challenges as they are and take them on board and think of new ways of addressing them. Because it will continue to get challenging, but frankly, that's what makes it fun and exciting as well. Yeah.
It's really about the balance in those things, but for example, what we face with is that millennials have a different perspective for intuitive technology than people from 50 years old. And we see that in companies what we work with, that most of the times the financials, have more difficulty than the technical people. So what is intuitive and how many personas do you include, and it's really finding a balance, because you also want to get that speed in the designing process and stuff like that. So it's always about the balance.
I think one of the things which I'd like to add, and Byron kind of covered in his first few slides, probably the reason why GPA was formed is simplification. I think the right answer, what everyone would like, I mean, it's first of all a difficult thing to do, what works for everyone. I think just simplifying a capability is something that will go on well with everyone, and standardize. So you walk into every room and you don't really have to learn and unlearn things, and you can have a very predictable outcome. That is one of the things from practical experience, what I had seen working. There was a saying at Coke that every business meeting starts with an IT problem, right? So someone has to, something doesn't work, some wire doesn't fix, and I think part of that is just the mere complication of building things on the top, never looking back and trying to simplify. So simplifying it, standardizing, you walk into a room here or in Jakarta or in Philippines, and you get the exact same experience that is universally liked, as far as I see.
Every conversation we have has some sort of technology element in. We're talking a lot more now about a room as a coach. So people are wanting meeting rooms that are interactive, that are a part of the conversation, that are changing the environment depending on who's in there. And for us, that seems a long way off, but it's actually probably not that far off. So we're looking at spaces that can support this and applications that can support this technology that the workforce are already asking for. So for us, it's one of the biggest challenges at the moment.
I think we also see that within the questions that we get. Years ago, it was just a meeting room for 5 persons, 10 persons, or things like that. And now it's activity-based working. So we need an interactive room, brainstorm room, or just a conference room. You get more questions based on activity than on size or other figures.
I mean, we're designing meeting rooms now that don't even have a table in it. It's a group of sofas and it's different heights depending on the activity that you're trying to encourage in the space. So it's no longer that traditional table with people sitting around it and maybe a whiteboard. So it's all about the collaboration and the design thinking, which is changing the way everyone is working.
Yeah, I have a space like that in our office, and that's the most loved room. Yeah. It doesn't have a table. Yeah, there's no place to keep your laptop on. Yes. So you enter the room without that, and it's used a lot for engaging with people whom we interview. That sends a very strong message. Yeah, I mean, I've hardly come across meetings now which are confined to people in the meeting room. They're all virtual. The virtual room has become much bigger, and a lot of these meetings are not even scheduled. So that's one of the shift that we are seeing. That you want to get into a room, quickly go down to your discussion, add randomly people on the fly, and remove them on the fly. So I think that is one of the things which we have seen, especially in our meeting spaces, evolve.
Yeah. And then for system integrators, it's difficult to transform those activity-based things to real technology. And then also to get it simple and intuitive. So you want a brainstorm room, but what is a brainstorm room in technical specifications? It's probably something with a touchscreen or something, but what functionalities do you need? That's where you need the personas for, and the workshops and the proof of concepts to determine what is useful and what's just technology for the sake of technology.
I think that's an aspect that's going to be really interesting to watch. We're certainly in many organisations seeing the response to agile ways of working and agility, and it's really common for us to receive a brief now, help us get these post-it notes out of the building. They've taken over, they're everywhere. What can the role of new technologies be to still allow that flexibility and agility, but getting the balance of some of the analogue and some of the more technology-enabled components right, because this is technology, the table is technology, just as much as the AV and mic setup is technology. There's just different types, and it's about integrating them together in a fit-for-purpose way, and one that fits within the budget as well.
I'm glad you mentioned agile. That's one of the kind of the biggest changes we're seeing at the moment. Is everyone wants to go to this agile type of hack your space way of working. And with furniture and things, that's easy. You put some casters on it, you can move it around. But in terms of integrating technology into furniture that is completely movable, is something that we're really struggling with. So it's great to hear your opinion on that.
I think to sum it up in as less words possible is probably you need to be spending 3 times the time you spend today with your customer to really understand what they are doing. With the kind of shift happening in technology and business space, whatever you were doing before, you probably need to do it 3 times more to really understand what your customer is doing, where it's heading, what really are their pain points. I think that probably is something what was told to me. I think it stuck my mind in my mind, so I'm kind of sharing.
I think one of the things that Downstream is always very open to and always looking for is people sharing, whether it's technology companies or AV integrators or others, architects even, sharing what's possible. I think we would all agree that there was a lot of inspiring visuals that LG Electronics provided and a lot of the backstory from Bose, etc. People don't know what they don't know until they can start to see it or experience it or taste it or feel it. And the more that different companies with different areas of specialisation can say, this is what we see coming up, this is the direction we believe our products or our services is going in. What does that mean for you if we can actually combine or collaborate or integrate in a way that's never been possible before? That's where the magic starts to happen. And the more that we can start to, I guess, think in that kind of way and have these molecules and atoms that collide in ways that have never been possible before, that's then when we, in turn, can go to our end users and clients and start to show different parts of the story and share different parts of the dream. So I think this idea of it requires effort and energy, but to always be proactively sharing what's possible with others goes a long way to new collaborations.
I guess getting to know your client, getting to know the end user, I think is so important, understanding their culture and their behaviours. So we always say it's better to slow down before you speed up. Just got to get a really good understanding of what the end goal is and where this company or the client wants to get to before you jump in with a solution. Your success rate is going to be so much higher taking that type of approach, again, rather than just a product-specific solution.
And I think for us, it's about building trust with your customer. We propose them stuff that they haven't seen, that they don't know if it's going to work, but building in a yearly relationship and building that trust, that say, believe me, this is the solution, the best solution for your user experience. But that's something that you don't really achieve in the first time. You have to build on that.
I agree to everything my colleague is saying, and I want to add, as I said in my presentation, don't get constrained with past or current what you're doing. And also, you have to be innovative. Innovation is not technology. Innovation can be anything. So I really encourage you to think about how innovative you can be. Otherwise, you're stuck.
Great, some great last insight there. So thank you to our panelists. Thank you, Harara, for doing a great job in guiding us through that.